watching Calf Kick Sports Podcast.
Hey folks, we are back for another episode of Calf Kick Sports. In today's episode, we have a budding heavyweight with probably one of the best nicknames we have heard on the show, Avery D's Hands Wilson. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How are y'all?
Boring question, and I know it's just a boring standard question, but how's training going? How's everything going at the moment?
Going good. Been doing a lot of weight training, lifting a lot of weights, just building up muscles.
Nice. How much cardio are you doing right now? Like, for example, if we wanted to get you in the cage this weekend, are you ready to go, or do you need a little more time?
I'd probably need a little bit more time, although I do a lot of cardio. I mean, here lately I've been working a lot, so you'd imagine, climbing up, 30-foot ladders, 30 to 100 times a day. That's, keeps me in shape. Plus, do a lot of running and stuff like that. That helps.
Nice. Let me ask a guy like me. I think I'm maybe 130 pounds. If I want to get up to your weight, what workouts do you recommend for a guy like me?
Probably just eating. Eat a lot of food, take a lot of, get a lot of protein and mass builder. And I don't recommend getting up to this weight, but
Is that the best thing about being a heavyweight? Because I've heard lots of different things about advantages, disadvantages of being a heavyweight. I think Tom Aspinall said this recently. He said that being a heavyweight in MMA, it's almost like a completely different sport. What's your take, or what would you say is the advantages and disadvantages, and would you agree with that statement as well?
I'd say the advantages is definitely you don't have to put your body through as much pain on the cut. I mean, some heavyweight fighters are cutting from 300, which I think that's just, that they should be walking around 270, 280, at the most 290. If you're walking at 300 and you're not 6'5" and higher, you're probably just out of shape and not training enough. But I'd say one of the disadvantages is, you're fighting people like, Francis, that hit like trucks. It seems like everybody that I fight is always 6'4", 6'5". There's never, I'm 6 foot tall. So like, there's never really that size heavyweights all the time, especially looking in the UFC, you can see, it's like 6'3" plus. I mean, besides Daniel, and, but I mean, other than that, Roy did a good for a while too, but he took some losses.
He even mentioned he didn't feel tall enough for heavyweight, so you wanted to go down at one point. Is that something you've ever considered, or you're like, nah, you know what? I like food too much. I want to be big and strong. I would rather be a heavyweight.
I feel like right now where I'm at, I have a speed advantage. Although I know, the higher this sport goes, even the guys that are big are fast and can move. But I feel like, since my past 8 years of fighting and training, that the bigger guys are slower. You can telegraph their punches. You can see the twitches and the things before, because all my life I've trained with a lot of littler training partners. And when I say littler, I mean like 170, maybe even a little bit smaller, because I like to get used to the movement of how fast they are. If I can dodge a jab from a 135 or 145 or 155, then I'm going to easily be able to jab a 265.
Yeah. Man, and one thing that you were talking about there was like Francis Ngannou hits like a truck, and there's a ton of guys in the heavyweight division who hit that hard. Bro, that's you. You're that guy. You're the guy who hits like a truck. Other people are scared of you. You're coming off a first round knockout a little while ago. Talk us a little bit about, like, do you go in there hoping I get a knockout in the first minute, or I want a little bit more cage time, or just whatever happens?
Well, it's funny, that fight, I was like, it's probably going to go to at least the second round. I always go into it with a mindset of that this may go all the rounds. Like, I never go in there expecting to knock someone out in 50 to 60 seconds like that. I know that that's possible, but it's not always possible. You can't just go in there and knock someone. If you do that, you're going to end up, in a, where you're going to cardio out eventually. You're going to meet that match where they can take those punches. They can take those hits. Now, here they come. They're taking you down. They're weighing on you, all those things.
Man, heavyweight is a different ballgame. But let me ask you, on Francis Ngannou, we got confirmation. Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. That's confirmed. It's signed.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the matchup?
I think that Tyson Fury has been hit hard enough by Wilder that he's going to be experienced enough on what to do, what to move, how to deflect. I think the only way that Francis wins is early.
Yeah.
And then if it goes anywhere past 4 and 5 rounds, it's all Fury.
I think you're one of the first MMA guys that's given a proper balanced opinion, because usually it's like Francis hits so hard, man. He can definitely do the work, but it's good to have a realistic point of view.
Oh, I analyze a lot of the sports, so I just try to always watch the and see people's tendencies and how that can affect them, and so.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to switch up a little bit now. I just kind of wanted to ask you. You're obviously a father as well. How do you balance fatherhood and full-time fighting? Is that something that's difficult, or do you find having children motivates you even more?
Well, that's a great question. I felt like that I was able to handle it a lot better whenever my children were younger. It's like now my oldest, she just turned 8 yesterday. And then I have a 6-year-old and then a 3-year-old, about to be 3-year-old. And, just the older they get, this whole past summer, both of them were in sports. So I'm taking them to this sport, taking them to that sport. And, it is difficult. And really, I've left the whole burden on my wife for the past 8 years, because every training camp I've done has always been out of state. I've never really been able to stay in town. I've done a couple camps with Jackson Wink, a camp with Glory, did a camp in Miami. And because, in Arkansas, I know Bryce Mitchell pitches about how he never has to leave Arkansas, but, even him and other fighters in Arkansas have to get that cross training, whether it's coming to Arkansas from another state or we're going there. We just have to have it, because I can name almost every single UFC fighter on the roster in Arkansas on one hand, so. Yeah. But no, my wife has been she's awesome. If I didn't have her, none of this would have been possible, for her to take care of all those kids. Plus she runs a multi-million-dollar Sonic and in Arkansas. So, she's really been a great help in all this.
Shout out to the biggest sponsor we have, our wives. Am I right?
Yeah.
Avery, absolutely. But let me ask you, your kids are all playing sports. Would you want your kids to go into MMA, or are you, now that you've been in it for a while, you encourage them to go stick with other sports?
So my kids there for a while were coming to training with me and stuff like that. Actually, the first day I took my son to jiu-jitsu with me, he went to kids class and he actually punched one of the kids in the nose and bloodied his nose. And I'm like, because he didn't understand, this is not fighting, this is jiu-jitsu, and so he's just getting on top of people and just ground and pounding them. But but the thing is, though, what I've learned is I want to be a part of my kids' training, but I don't want to be their sole trainer, because whenever you start teaching your kids stuff, it's like, and I see every MMA coach in the United States that has a son or a daughter that they're pushing to be fighters, and now they're falling off. It's been 18 years of this hardcore training that dad's put me through, and now I don't want to do it anymore because I just lost the love for the sport. So I don't want to be that guy. I want to be able to find a coach that I trust to train my children, where I can still look from the outside in, and if they need help, I can develop where necessary.
What would you say is an ideal age then? Because obviously you mentioned burnout is a thing, with a lot of people that are trying to push their kids early. Is there an ideal age, or is that?
Well, depending on what country you live in, I think in America, 8 years old is a good time. But you got to be careful on what they're doing. I see, you can see in Thailand 5, 6, 7-year-olds Muay Thai sparring. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe that children should take head kicks to the head and all that brain damage, because their brains are still developing. So if they're constantly getting rattled around all the time, I feel like it's stunting their brain growth.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have to retire at 18, a lot of them, which is insane.
Exactly.
You know, you start as a kid and then you're done by the time of 18, 19.
Exactly, because they didn't had 200 fights.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think the way that I did it, I mean, looking back on it, I have said multiple times, I wish I would have went a little faster. But if you look back at my track record, I've only fought maybe once or twice a year, which you know, Dana might say, hey, that's not active enough for us. But if I'm constantly putting on a show every single time that I fight, you know, that's the selling point. And my very first promoter was Josh Hudson. He ran Pyramid Fights, in which I eventually became the heavyweight champ for. You know, Josh told me, you know, and he spoke to me like I was one of his fighters training underneath him. He's like, dude, the guys that are fighting every 2 weeks or every month, those are the guys that aren't going to go very far in this sport. But the people that allow themselves the time to develop after their fight, you know, 3 to 4 months, like you actually learn something from that fight. You're not just going on to the next opponent. That's the people that are going to stay in the sport and do well. And I feel like I've never like picked my opponents or anything like that. I've always, like, someone's came forward to me and the promoter at that time, and just like, yeah, like I always trusted that they were going to give me the fight that was on track with my level to where I needed to be pursuing, you know, the next step.
It's like you're taking a very analytical approach to the
Exactly.
sport almost. Like you're not just like, man, get me in there right this weekend. I don't care against two. So when do you want to get back into the cage? And then ideally, in a perfect world, how frequently do you want to be fighting?
I think 2 to 3 times a year. I think so. Last year, in the last years, I got back from a hiatus. So I'm always more free during the winter times. So like, and I say that like, I don't use MMA to make money. You know what I'm saying? We are profit share owners in a restaurant, and plus I run a full-time business, Blue Ribbon Ice, where we service restaurants all around the United States doing preventative maintenance for AC and refrigeration and ice machines. So like those are I do this for the love of it, because I love it and I want to be a part of it. And if you ask me, looking back, you know, I didn't think I would take it this far but it's just because of the love of the sport. You know, and that's why I've took my time. But 2 to 3 times a year is what I like to fight. Yeah. And that being like once in the beginning of the year, because it's early and it's winter time. And then during the summertime, it's when I'm so busy. And then usually another 2 times in the end of the year is what I like to fight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's all about the promoters, though. Whenever they have fights, and I'm signed with Fury FC, and you know, they have fights every other weekend, so I don't ever have to worry about getting, you know, when I could get on a card with them.
Awesome. What would you say? I mean, obviously you've got a very busy schedule. You know, your business owner, as you mentioned, Avery. But what's the goal? Would you say in terms of, is there a particular promotion you'd like to go into later down the line, or you just happy at Fury? As you said, it's for the love. So I just kind of wanted to understand a little bit there.
Well, you know, even if it's for the love, everybody wants to make it to the big stage. You know, I'd like to fight in the UFC. You know, I mean, it's not like at one point it was my main goal to be in the UFC. And I felt like that I really needed to restructure my mindset because I was chasing it too hard. And like, so I was training with Glory MMA, and then stuff happened there. So I went back to Arkansas and was trying to restructure and redevelop, and just because people won't say it, UFC fighters won't say it. And I've been around a lot of them, but it changes you. It really does. Like the media and everything that, you know, the lifestyle that you're starting to develop. And like, I'm a Christian, and I felt like that I was really developing the wrong mindset into the sport and starting to lust things. And that's not where I want my mind. I want my mind to be, you know, pure about this and develop as a good fighter, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ash.
No, so I was going to say, so how did you eventually, I mean, just kind of wanted to go back to the origin. How did you get into MMA initially? Yeah, I mean, what's the origin story there?
So, origin story, to keep it short and sweet, I was a very neglected child. We had a hard life. I mean, there was nothing positive besides me being God-given athletic, talents as a child. I didn't start doing MMA or even training or anything till I was about 12 years old. I actually was a baseball star my whole life.
Oh wow!
And we did in Cabot, Arkansas, where I'm from. We had something called CabotFights.com, and people used to literally go in the backyard and just literally fight each other, and we would video record it, and we would put it on YouTube, and it got so blown up that eventually they had to delete it because there was this one fight, and this dude just got completely annihilated, and it was really bloody, and so they took it down and took the whole website down, and then ever since then, I just always fought. I mean, I loved it, and I was good at it too. And it wasn't even like because I was only training off and on. It wasn't until I was like 16 years old that I actually started training full time and actually stuck with it. But I just loved the sport, and then eventually, I was going to this boxing gym just to get back in shape. I was like 300 pounds, and I was like, man, I'm tired of being fat. I was like, can we just, can you help me out? And it was just basically a nonprofit gym. And the boxing coach was also an active MMA fighter. And I was like, he's like, yeah, come on in. Let's see, would you mind sparring? And I was like, do people usually spar on their first days? And he was like, no, not really. But you said that you've fought a lot in your life. Let's just see what you got. And I was like, all right, whatever. So, and then he was a heavyweight too. And I ended up knocking him out within 10 seconds of the sparring round, which I felt bad because I didn't know, that was my first time ever sparring, and he got mad. So then we went another couple rounds until I was completely out of gas. And then it was that day he was like, I'm getting you an MMA fight. You're going to fight in less than 90 days. And I was like, whoa. And then from that point, I took my first, it was a super heavyweight fight. I lost 30 pounds during that camp, came out, knocked him out 58 seconds. And then after that, I fought a couple months later, knocked him out in like 35 seconds. And then, just kept going. Then I had a few backouts on me the day of, and then fought for a title fight in my hometown of Cabot, Arkansas. Won that in the second round by chokeout, or rear naked choke. And, and I actually, I'm proud of where I've came this far, and I feel like I've really tested myself throughout the years. And, I just never took the easy route, going to Jackson Wink, that's, if you've had any fighter from there, they're tough as nails. And the camp there is very, very, it's not difficult, but it's strategical enough to where it pushes you. And plus the altitude training and sparring with the high developed fighters, that's where the training's at. And Glory as well. Glory, I would say, was probably one of the best gyms that I have ever been to in my whole life of training. It felt like brotherhood plus awesome training. Me and Julian Marquez was roommates for a couple months, and dude, I mean, he's awesome. I mean, we still talk on a regular basis, and the Missile Crisis is awesome, man. He's a bad dude. He actually gave me my first cut I've ever had in this sport, and it was on accident, but it gave me an uppercut to the eye, and all these years I've never had a cut, and he gave it to me, and I was just like, oh, dude, I was like, kind of awesome, got my cut by Julian.
Did you brainstorm your nicknames at the same time? You both got really good nicknames. Cuban Missile Crisis and D's Hands. That's pretty awesome.
Man, we've had a few people from Jackson Wink on, I forget some of their names now, but we had like Davion Franklin and a few others.
Oh yeah, Davion. Me and him go way back.
Tell me everything. Tell me about this relationship.
No way.
Well, I'm not gonna say way back, but I'll say 6 years or 7 years. So that's kind of way back for some. Davion Franklin, I met him at Jackson Wink. It was my first camp. He had already been living there for a year. And this was way before he got the I don't know how they said it. It's like the Mataleon Award or whatever the sponsorship he got from the gym. And I just remember him being so motivated all the time. And he kept telling me, like, he had never had an amateur fight. He had never had a pro fight. And people would dog on him, like, you know, but he was so strong-minded. And that's why he has gone as far as he has. He always like, I'm going to be champion. I'm going to be champion. He said, I'm going to do a debut for Bellator. He's like, it's going to happen. And like, I'm going to be the best. And he's done it. I mean, the dude is strong. And he's a great guy too.
Man, yeah, he's good. He's great to talk with. He's a good chat with. He's motivated. He is extremely talented and athletic. But one thing he also said, he was like, man, Jackson Wink mentioned, but he's like, sometimes those sparring sessions are worse than the fights I'm in, right?
Yep. Yeah, I've heard a couple of people getting knocked out, but and that's when I say they are hardcore and they spar almost every day. So it's not, you know, and it's hard sparring every other day pretty much. So
man,
yeah,
it's rough out there. It's rough. But let me round you out as a person a little bit here. So give me you can give me a one-word answer, you can give me details. It's okay. What are you listening to right now? What's your favorite music?
Always Christian music, pretty much Christian rap. Lecrae, KB, all of them are like really big inspirations in my life, and I feel like it keeps me in the right mindset.
Nice, good stuff. Favorite video games, if any?
Favorite video games, I like Apex Legends, and then recently getting into that new Grand Theft Auto and stuff.
Nice. And favorite anime, if any?
Not too much.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. All right. And some of the fighters that you looked up to, I know we talked a little bit about Roy Nelson and Daniel Cormier. When you were younger and kind of getting inspired, who were you kind of into?
Forrest Griffin was always a big one, just because the dude could take so many punches, such a beating.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say? Do you have any advice for anyone entering the sport, per se?
Take your time and make sure that you find a coach that is true and that believes in you and that will push you and is not going to just use you as a coattail, you know, and try to surround yourself by fighters that are already developed in the sport. You know, iron sharpens iron. You know, if you're the best in the gym, it's probably not the best place for you. Absolutely. So always challenge yourself every day.
100%. So we asked this question to a lot of our guests. You know, obviously you got Conor McGregor. He's got his proper 12 whiskey. You've got Dustin Poirier. He's got his hot sauce. You know, they got their own signature brands. If you had your own signature brand, I know you're already ready for this question. What would your signature brand be?
I don't have to have my own signature brand. If Powerhead Whiskey can just put me on, I probably got 200 bottles of this whiskey that I've drank over the past year because it's just so good. And me and my buddy, we pushed for Happy Dads for a long time. But man, I think that we talked about having these gloves that is these hands gloves, and you go like these hands, kind of like the Hulk hands. I just thought that would be cool.
Man, that's good stuff. Okay, so I got my mic level. I didn't realize that it was way down at the bottom. Sorry, I was whispering to you guys for most of this, but I got the mic fixed. But here, last word, Avery, goes to you. Shout out who you need to shout out. Thank who you need to thank. Last word, you talk us on out of here, sir.
Alrighty, I just want to thank Mad Tatters. He's my tattoo guy. He's been taking care of me for all these years. I want to thank my wife, of course, all my kids. I want to thank Jason House, my manager with Iridium. He does really good in taking care of me. I appreciate that. His wife, Alyssa. I want to thank everybody with Glory. I want to thank everybody at Gillespie Boxing, Coach G there. I want to thank Fury FC for always taking care of me and putting me on. Want to thank basically everyone that's helped me throughout my life and throughout this sport, you know, and everyone that's been there for me. Everybody, you know, trying to think of all the sponsors off the top of my head. It's so hard, you know, but Conley has always been there for me. And God, of all people, you know, God's been always there for me, and I pray before every fight, and I try to find one fighter to pray with, you know, that look like they're having a hard time to get through this, you know, this match, you know. So I just appreciate everybody so much. I'm very humble, and I appreciate y'all having me on here.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much,
much.
man. You're the best. Thank you.
Yes, sir. No problem.
You're watching Calf Kick Sports Podcast. Tim Ash. Calf Kick Sports Podcast.